Come on home to Oakland. My light is on, my door is open. You can occupy my arms if you're lonesome, baby, if you're lonesome. Come on home to Oakland. Hey old friend, how are you? Oh, it's good to hear from you. You're really on the move. Life is good, yeah, life is great. I don't see me changing face for love, even if it were true. Cause I know that love can be so fickle, baby. I ain't got the time. But when you come on home to Oakland, my light is on, my door is open. You can occupy my arms if you're lonesome, baby, if you're lonesome. Come on home to Oakland. I got my plan for speed ahead, RPMs up in the red. I ain't slowing down. I'm glad I got a friend like you. You make me bright when I'm feeling blue, hey boy. When does your plane touch down? It gets a little lonely standing on my own. And I wanted you to know that when you come on home to Oakland, my light is on, my door is open. You can occupy my arms if you're lonesome, baby, if you're lonesome. Come on home to Oakland. You come on home to Oakland. My light is on, my door is open. You can occupy my arms if you're lonesome, baby, if you're lonesome. Come on home to Oakland. On home to Oakland. Come on home to Oakland. You come on home to Oakland.
I spilled.
Thank you. Thank you. That's an original song, and it's for free online at stompinggroove.com, which is our website, and we've got flyers here as well. This is by Frank Gordon on the fiddle. My name's Lisa Marie Johnston.
With the Taste of Yountville, who came up with the idea of having buskers?
I believe that was probably Jessup Sellers. I'm not 100% certain who came up with the idea at the time, but we were definitely very supportive of it. Jessup Sellers has presented buskers before. They've presented Heather Jacks and her work in studying busking in New York City, so I think they had a lot to do with that. So it was their second annual exhibition of busking in at Jessup Sellers at their gallery. And so the first year they had presented a little bit about Heather Jacks' New York City book and photography from the New York City book. And I believe this year they had a little bit of a different show with different artwork, although related to the work she's starting to do here in the Bay Area and different work happening. So it's exciting.
Well, it's funny because here we see the buskers playing outside, but in New York City, many times you see them down in the subways.
Right, because it's cold or extremely hot.
Right, exactly.
Right. Here they're playing on the pier, they're playing, outside. I mean, in New York City, you'll still see them in Central Park. I was just there a couple years ago, and right out in front of the Met History Museum, You would have, of course, buskers are not only musicians, but this was hip-hop dancers doing a big performance, and people lining up on the stairs, you know, hundreds of people just stopping and wanting to see what was going on. So.
What a tremendous place for it.
Yeah.
I love the Met. I grew up going to the Met.
Mm-hmm.
Just almost like the temple of art.
Yeah.
So, at which point did you start becoming real interested in it? Because I know this is a personal interest of yours.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, I think I've always been interested in it ever since I was little. I was fortunate to be living in the Bay Area and getting to go to San Francisco often, but also getting to go to New York and Chicago and different metropolitan areas where busking is a lot more prominent. And always just, that was what I wanted to see. You know, I wanted to see, what's that guy doing, you know, over there? Phenomenal skills, whether it was the dancing or musicians or even somebody reciting spoken word, that kind of energy it takes to stop people in the street, to stop their everyday life where they're going, interrupt it in a way they want to be interrupted. I mean, that's a really unique gift to have, and that's not just a gift, but it's a cultivated skill. So I think I've always been interested in it. But I think really solidified it for me was I had the opportunity to go to Europe when I was in middle school. And I went to France and to Paris and Barcelona. And in Paris and Barcelona, they actually have designated areas for busking, for street performers, and not only the performative arts, but the visual arts as well. People are selling artworks and painting live and doing all sorts of things along the Seine and in Las Ramblas in Barcelona. And it's really a part of the culture of their downtown area. And you'll find it kind of spread throughout the cities, but phenomenal, you know, tango artists with violinists and, you know, traditional dances from all different areas, and like I said, live painting and these sort of things. And it's kind of what you expect when you go there. It's the flavor of the city brought to you out in the streets. And coming back to the United States, even at that age, I realized how little we have that activation of our city streets. You know, you kind of expect to have to go indoors to see what a community is all about. But in Europe, a lot of these larger cities in Europe, and actually I found a lot of the smaller cities in Europe too, it's just a part of the culture where it's in everything. And that made me really appreciate the artistry and what it can bring to a community.
We got in one morning, and typically you write at 10 and the 2, 10 a.m. and then 2 p.m. You show up, you write a song for 3 hours, you break for lunch, then you write another song for 3 hours. And we had the whole day, and we got in, we wrote, or tried to write for about 3 hours, and we got nothing. We decided we'd go have lunch and have a drink, and we came back and wrote this one in about an hour. It's called Kids Today. It's our old curmudgeon song. Baseball cards and a stick of gum, Red Ryder BB gun. Watch where you point that thing or shoot your eye out. All-time quarterback back a touchdown. I didn't see it, don't you? Come on, we'll swing across the creek and wait to jump on. Days, those were the best. Your age's been the same, good as it gets. No cell phone, no internet, video games, and we had everything before we had everything. All kids today, all kids today. Popping wheelies and double dog bears, plain white sheets over kitchen chairs, hiding in a homemade Ford sleeping bag of flashlights, running around in the summertime catch those fireflies. The camouflage, you better dodge that pine cone grenade. That day robbing a town before it came. Those were the good days. Those were the best. The age of innocence, good as it gets. No cell phone, no internet, video games, man, we had everything before we had everything. All kids today, they don't know what they're missing. The simple things, string, little cane pole fishing. Those were the good days. Those were the best. The age of innocence, good as it gets. No cell phone, no internet, video games, man, we had everything before we had everything. Now we had everything before we had everything. All kids today. It's right about this time where I feel like I should tell a story about how I walked 8 miles in the snow when I was a kid in a bus. You know, had to stoke my own fires or do something like that. Those are the good old days. Thanks so much, you guys. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, it's interesting when they play in the subways, for instance, they have to stop when the train comes.
Yeah, yeah.
So you get kind of a built-in pause.
Right, yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
And
yeah.
so I imagine someplace along the way they actually have to time their performance about, you know, I know when the 9 train's coming, so
You probably get into a rhythm of it after
Wrap
a
up.
while. Yeah,
Wrap up.
yeah.
you know, and then in Europe, of course, you know, so many people have very small homes, so much of their life is spent out in their
Yeah.
communal areas, their plazas and such. You know.
Yeah, it definitely, as I've grown up, learned that a lot of our city planning, expectations of our lifestyle, like you're saying, plays into this. You're exactly right, that in Europe, when you go even to the small towns or the big cities, the personal living areas are a lot smaller and the community areas are a lot larger and much more trafficked. So you build tight, more densely, expecting that people will interact in a communal area, where we had the exact opposite, especially in the West, where it was we all want our own plot of land, we want to live on our own islands, we don't want to have to interact with people. So our downtowns are a lot less, and town squares are a lot less a part of our expectation of lifestyle.
Well, that's one of the wonderful things about California, is because it's a combination of Latin hospitality and Yankee ingenuity and enterprise. So a lot of our spaces have been designed as communal spaces. I mean, look at the Plaza of Sonoma is based upon a European
Oh,
town.
absolutely. I mean, I think that even though you're right, and I think we're going in that direction more and more. I mean, even if you look at the city of Napa or Yountville, for example, or any of the cities that are going under redevelopment here in Napa County, that a lot more thought's being put into those communal spaces and how can this interact if, you know, as home values go up here and people, not because necessarily of choice, but because of economics, are living in smaller quarters or more people to a quarter, that communal area where we have shared spaces becomes a lot more valued. And I think that's where you're starting to see that trend changing.
It's interesting in Yountville, because like downtown Noma, they have a sculpture program.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful to see how you had these musicians playing and you had these people walking around, and all these people walking around these beautiful sculptures.
Yes.
Like little pieces of jewelry in the town. And while in a subway you have a built-in pause, for these musicians there was no built-in pause.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you do have those different environments to contend with, and that's one of the things that's, again, amazing about busking, is not only is the environment not built for you. You know, for instance, like when you're working on a stage or working in these different environments, or you have a schedule and this is kind of when you're playing and the audience expects you to play for a certain amount of time and they've come to you, you're coming to them. And they may or may not want you, you know? Right. And so, you know, it's definitely something where you have to work within your environment, that not just the physical kind of standing out there, working with what you have. Usually buskers have very limited resources around them. I mean, that's part of it is you can't be blocking the public walkways with a lot of stuff. So, you know, at most a guitar case and a music stand and your stool, if you're lucky, or maybe not, and you're just kind of more like a minstrel walking around. And you have to set up and kind of, you know, be out of people's way, but call attention to yourself. And what I think is interesting is not only having to work in that environment and figuring out how you can work with the environment, and the long hours. Maybe there are people walking by, maybe not, and that's part of it is finding the right spot, you know, kind of the sweet spots to busk in, but also the strength of character that it takes to do it, because, you know, you go on stage and that's scary, but you know people are there to see you. You know, you go out in the public and you're, you know, playing, you have no idea what the reaction is going to be, and so you really have to be thinking about, how do I capture people's attention? How do I entertain them? And since busking is about the money you make on busking is merit, you know, if you're planning on making money, which a lot of these folks do, is based on your merit, your skills. You're not getting that money up front. You're saying if people like what you're doing and you're offering your skills for free in hopes that through the honor system, somebody's going to say, yeah, that was great. We want to pay a little bit money towards that. And what's phenomenal is that some of these buskers in San Francisco and New York can make $50,000, $60,000 a year. Busking, or maybe even a little bit more. And that in and of itself, where you're giving your service and hope people reward you back, that's a huge strength of character, to know it's doing well, and the environment itself weeds people out. You know, you're not going to be doing it for a year if, you know, you don't get very good positive feedback and you're not learning your skills and you're not earning money. So it tends to make them very hardy artists.
Which is a nice thing to say, because, you know, art does require longevity to really get good, and it takes stamina. And another thing that was interesting is, I'm trying to think of, it was one of the musicians who said, you know, she's working on her 10,000 hours. You know, the 10,000 hours of mastering a
Malcolm
subject.
Gladwell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was working on her 10,000 hours. She was good ways through it. And
yeah.
that ability to play that much, to pursue your art that much in any situation, is one of the ways in which you refine it.
Absolutely, yeah. And knowing your audience, I think reading the audience, all of that's really important.
I've got like reverb there and EQ on the bass.
Okay.
And that's about it. So yeah, it's
It's got a standard Boss EQ.
Yeah, real simple. I figured I'd bring out whatever. And this is that Zoom pedal. It's just doing reverb right now, but I can do other stuff if I want to. It's amazing. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So I can do a little bit of bass and guitar at the same time is the whole idea.
Yeah.
Of that.
And who makes that?
This is made by Emerald Guitars out of Ireland. It's a carbon fiber instrument, which is really
Sweet.
really interesting with a little bit of a wood top, and yeah, just trying to do anything fun and syncopated is really great.
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
Appreciate it. Let's see, I'll do original tune here real quick. Anaheim.
Beautiful.
No, what was wonderful about this, and I mean, Yountville has to be one of the most hospitable places on the planet. I mean, if we had a list, it would be in the top 5 to 10.
Yeah.
You know, and because of the Michelin star ratings, you know, it's got Napa's more Michelin stars per capita than any place else on the planet.
Right.
And a whole bunch of them were concentrated
In
in Yountville, and this was the Taste of Yountville.
Right.
And then the buskers were given very comfortable places to work in, mostly. Though there was variation.
Right.
Some were more comfortable than others. But it was very evident in their performance and how confident their performances were and how much they seemed to enjoy it because they weren't having to worry about someone pushing them along.
Right.
You know, do I have to get out of here fast
Right.
because I see a cop car in the
Right.
corner? And their artistry really was able to come out. And I think they made it, it dramatically improved the Taste of event. Because I've been at Taste of events all over this region because we run a tour company. And usually, you know, it's an individual wineries and there's one musician, but here you could, as you were leaving one musician's orbit, you could start hearing the next. That was remarkable.
Yeah, I think the really good events are done that way. And even in that environment where you're essentially working in an organized fashion, you know, where you've kind of placed an artist in far enough reach of each other that you don't have the bleeding, you know, kind of a sound bleed between them, it still is a strength of character to do that kind of work and stand out there and, like you were saying, for 5, 6 hours or different things like that. But I think that is really important, and it's really important to the pedestrian's experience of an event, because a good event organizer will understand that you want to give each artist enough kind of lead-in sonically, you know, so that people can hear you and be attracted to you visually or sonically, and leave enough room so that an audience can congregate and you're not blocking a walkway or different things like that. And yet at the same time, you don't want to place a quieter musician in a big open space, and you don't want to place a really, you know, loud performance in a small space. So figuring all those things out and organizing that kind of run of show is really can really make a big difference in how it feels.
Speaking of that very significant subject, who was it who worked that stuff out?
I believe that was all the Taste of Yountville folks. I mean, so part of it was we run a program called Arts in April and different arts events and umbrellas, and we help to promote different events like that and encourage more events like this. And so we get the opportunity to work with people and help them figure out how to meet with artists or who to partner with, but they all do it themselves. So that was all the town of Yountville, the Chamber of Commerce, Jessup Cellars. I mean, really figuring out who their contacts were and how to organize it and make it all happen. So it's a wonderful thing to see and be, you know, be able to promote.
It was beautifully done.
Yeah.
Huh? See you later.
If we're gonna get a drop of rain around here, Almanac says it's another dry year. There ain't enough clouds broken through the sunshine. I can hear Daddy whisper, "Good, it'll all be fine." My fuel tank's empty, the well's gonna dry. Got a lot of questions, I wanna know why the good times seem out of reach around here. The almanac says it's another dry year. Janet and I grew up next door, a mile away than each dirt road. She's driving around a new pickup truck, Southwest in a quarter sold for $100,000. Developers got a lot of pull around here, but my family roots run back 100 years. I hope things aren't as close as they appear. The almanac says it's another dry year. Another dry year. Boatman's calling in my yard and waving money, saying the girls shouldn't have to work so hard. And every knock sounds louder than the last, but I can hear Daddy say, stay with the past, girl. There ain't no credit at the feed store. I try real hard, I can't settle the score. The only water's coming from my well of tears. The almanac says it's another dry year. Another dry year. Another dry year. Another dry year. Thank you. That's an original song we just released online at stompinggroove.com. Check us out.